spectrum of RBB. Possible change to asymmetric architecture. We see several architecture published doing that. Polar Firesock has a 4+1. NASA microchip HPSC is probably doing 8+4, not completely confirmed. And the biggest challenge is we have to work on the cache and memory architecture, because if we go for parallel processing, we have to make sure that we shuffle the data in and out. Otherwise, our vector units will be idle. And that's the work for the coming couple of years to do. The chip is for the time being targeting 7 nanometers, but we first have to see if a 7 nanometer library for space is ready. Okay, talking about NASA, I already mentioned that. It's an interesting case. They started around 2018. We had several presentations. I presented the architecture shown top left based on 8-core A53. The project was stopped. Probably not because of ARM. I understood that the 32 nanometer technology they wanted to use was stopped, so they had to restart and rethink the project. And they opened the trade-off for the ISA trade-off, and they had a parallel studies in 2021, and they ended up, and they gave a contract in 2022, not too long ago, to Microchip. And they're going to use RISC-V cursor. So they're going to use Psi5 next to 80. So that's RISC-V with vector extension. When I heard that, I say, okay, that's great news. It's great news for us, because it will also help us to promote the RISC-V in the European space community. Few words on microcontrollers. I'm running out of time. The focus, and we have been doing microcontrollers in various architectures for a long time. We see ARM, we see OpenMSP 430, very old 16-bit architecture. We have Spark microcontrollers. Here we begin to see a transition to RISC-V as well. Technolution has an IP core. They have ported it to Rutland FPGA. A colleague of mine has done his own RISC-V design. And we're trying to push on that side as well by developing a RISC-V microcontroller IP, which will be available as IP on ISA portfolio for the community for space projects, targeting soft IP on the sometimes relatively small space FPGA and standard microcontrollers. At last, RISC-V is in space already. We have there's a nanosat by University of Maribor in Slovenia that was launched almost a year ago. That is using an OBC with a Node 5 soft IP running on a Polar Fire FPGA. It's not Polar Firesock, so it's not a hardcore, it's a soft IP. It's running in space and it's working. There is certainly more use of RISC-V. People having controllers in their FPGAs here and there, and they will not publish it. So it's certainly not the only one. RISC-V is already in space. Trying to conclude. So, we have seen the chip design in space is a very specific, very peculiar thing. We have all the constraints, reliability, environmental, radiation, but also different project and cost setup, which makes our life sometimes very, very difficult. We have been using OpenISA for 30 years, Spark, and I think we've been happy with that. We've been very successful, but it's coming to an end with Spark. Keep in mind, OpenISA is not for free. If you want mature IP, there's always a price, and we always have to spend effort on that. The transition to RISC-V for us continues the success we had with Spark. We see additional value by the RISC-V extensions, the standard ones, the official ones, as I call them. I would recommend our community at least being careful with custom extensions. We see a need to have IP certification, and also we have to watch the parity of the extensions, including the official ones, and the acceptance in the community. So we are busy with RISC-V. We have chips in the pipeline. It's already it's already flying RISC-V, and we also see a need for high performance, and that's maybe surprising, but yeah, there's a pull for that from our applications, and the way forward is to do RBD. Then NASA has decided more or less the same thing, RISC-V with vector expansion. So, in summary, RISC-V for us is a great opportunity. I would say it's a rising star, and we're trying to promote the transition to RISC-V, which doesn't prevent people from choosing other architectures. So we have diversity. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you for this very interesting talk. We have time for a couple of questions. So I see a couple of them. That one, and then.
I wonder if you have open calls for projects in respect to this RISC-V architecture.
I'm not sure if we have currently an open call. We have had an open call in the past, and this has led to one of those projects. If you're interested, I can give you a link where the calls are being published. There's a website where the open calls are being published. But I can also tell you that a lot of what we're doing is based on direct negotiation, which means that companies seek for support of their own member state, and then we're running activities. So it's not everything is in open calls, but some things are in open calls, and there will certainly be more.
There's another question there.
Hello, is there any value in having different SKUs that the NASA is using at ESA, or would it make more sense just to say for each of these organizations just develops one class, which is then also used by the other?
That would be in an ideal world, yes. In the real world, we have export control, and so there's a strong motivation to do, let's say, dedicated implementation in the different geographical regions of the world. We're not the only ones. Asia is doing their own implementations as well. China, Japan is doing their own implementations. There is some exchange, and luckily we're doing exchange at technology level, at technical level. We have had talks to NASA last year, and I think the year before, about RISC-V. And the conclusion was, yes, people each will go do their own implementation. Also because we want to select suppliers from our own geographical regions. So the US wants to do homeland suppliers, so they chose Sci-Fi. And we have European IP suppliers and companies. But the conclusion was, yes, if we manage to agree, at least on the ISA, we have a big added value, because for the software community, the exchange, technical exchange, and conferences and so on, mobility of staff as well. So, but one implementation for the whole world, I'm afraid it's not going to work. As sad as it might be.
Thank you. During your talk, you talked about the need for certification or standardization. And I was wondering if ESA had any plans to try and launch maybe a standard for qualifying open source hardware, because such a standard might help guide the open source community. I'm thinking in terms of what artifacts you need, what levels of quality you need for an IP to be acceptable for use in space.
We have standards for IC and ASIC and FPGA development, for the development methodology. We also have guidelines for IP development, but they're not specific to open source or open hardware solutions. We begin to look into open hardware as well, but so far there hasn't been any standardization. When I'm talking about certification, it's more about the certification of the compliance to the ISA. That's what I meant with that. But it's maybe a suggestion. Maybe that will happen in the future. Thanks.
Thank you again, Robert.
Yeah, thank you.
So our next speaker is Luca Lingardo from NXP Semiconductors, and he's going to talk about implementation of an edge computer architecture based on a RISC-V core for RFID communication.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm Luca Lingardo. I work at NXP. Today, as already announced, I'm going to talk about vision of an XP of bringing a RISC-V based microarchitectures at the computing edge of an NFC device. So let's go a moment through the agenda. I will give first an introduction about myself, my business line, what we do in our team. Then I'm going to talk about near-field communication. We'll give a fast overview and what's the problem statement behind the current architectures of NFC, and how we plan on solving these issues, these limitations with a RISC-V based solution. And at the end, I'm going to talk about our future ambition and how we plan on achieving our goals. So let's go to the next slide. So about myself, I'm a senior digital design engineer. I'm working at NXP Semiconductor in Austria. At the moment, I'm the technical coordinator of my team, and on top of that, I'm also coordinating one of the Tristan work items for new IP development that work with the extension of ISA. My business line focuses on the development of NFC solutions for the IoT market, mobile wallet, and secure transaction and access. My team is responsible for the development of the NFC digital modem. So basically the unit that packs the information before transmission and unpack the information in reception. The activity I'm going to talk about today is sponsored, funded by the Tristan Consortium, and we are closely collaborating with many universities. At the moment, we have master thesis students and PhD students from the Polytechnic University of Turin and the Technical University of Graz. So about our site, we are based in Gradcorn, in the vicinity of Graz. Our site counts for 700 employees, more or less, and we have 5 product lines focusing on automotive, IoT, and security. So let's go. Let's talk about NFC. So what is NFC? NFC is just an umbrella of radio frequency